This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. We discuss everything there is to know in the world of sports. I'm Ben.
I'm Alex.
And I'm back.
Yeah, you are.
Back from San Jose, LA, all over California.
Yeah, you went to two of the cool ones, I guess. I went to Santa Cruz yesterday. I'm back from Santa Cruz.
The weather was pretty good in LA.
Yeah, we were all over the place.
It's like 80, 83 degrees, I think.
Did I tell you when I was coming back from San Diego and I came through LA? There was a huge fire up there. It's like 17,000 acres.
Yeah, the fire.
Yeah, man, it looked like... Have you seen This Is the End?
Yeah, with like all the...
Seth Rogen comedian friends.
Yeah, and they all have like they're using like their own character names and stuff.
They're playing themselves, yeah. What was it? Yeah, it looked like that. Like after the whole end of the world part where then it's in the house, like it was... it was smoky and cloudy like that. Like it was all orange, I was like, what's going on? Is it smog? And then we realized there was a fire up in the hills, and it was crazy, man.
It was pretty smoggy down there. Like LA in general is smoggy to begin with, but I feel like there was still that effect of that fire down there.
Well, when you and I came back from San Jose on Tuesday
night,
it was smoky out here too.
Yeah, it was like it just lingers on and travels with you.
Yeah, it wasn't that fire, apparently. It was one from somewhere else. But, hey, man, no more fires. We're going through a drought. We don't need fires.
It's California. It happens. So,
have you seen those signs on the way to L.A., if you went the way that I went, that it says, Congress created the Dust Bowl? Or,
no.
And they're talking about all the droughts. Yeah, on the other side of the road. And it's like, Congress created the Dust Bowl. Is growing food, wasting water, and all these stupid... drought.com, stupid posters and stuff.
I didn't see all that.
No, you weren't looking.
I wasn't paying attention, really, so...
You weren't looking.
I'm sorry.
It's okay, man. I understand. I mean, you missed out, though.
I did. Maybe I'll have to look it up. That way I can see it.
They're like just like those little... Like almost the size of signs you see on the side of the road for like, free mattress, call this number. Yard sale, call, come here, follow the arrows. It's like the same thing.
Well, there you go.
There you go. All right, well, we're going to talk about a few things today. We have the MLB trade deadline to talk about, some NFL holdouts now that camp has gone underway, and we are no longer any Sundays away from football. The Hall of Fame game is this Sunday, and we have football, at least in a form or another, every Sunday until the Super Bowl.
Pretty soon on Saturdays, too.
Yep, I'm pretty excited.
Thursdays, Fridays, all over.
Monday nights.
I don't know about Tuesday and Wednesdays.
I don't think... I mean, I'm sure there's college football games.
There's occasionally a college Wednesday game.
Yeah. We'll talk about it when it happens. I'll be like, Ben, there's a college football game this Wednesday. And then we're talking about PGA Championship. Some stuff about the PGA Tour.
Yes, definitely.
PGA Championships went on. We're talking about some players and what we think of the state of the PGA. So we're going to get started. We're going to talk about the MLB trade deadline. It was yesterday at 1 p.m. as I was leaving here today. This time yesterday, I mean. There were 18 trades yesterday on Monday, most on a day of non-waiver trade deadline in the wildcard era since that's 95. 50 players that were involved, 20 teams, and then 18 trades total were made.
Yeah,
some of the
right? Definitely. I was surprised. There were some of the big ones. People like Jonathan Lucroy to the Rangers, Carlos Beltran to the Rangers. The Yankees were really active. A lot of the big teams that are trying to make a push. Cleveland Indians were really active. I mentioned the Rangers, Giants, Cubs. Not so much yesterday, but leading up with the Chapman trade we talked about last week. So a lot of big name teams trying to make that push. Then we have, it sounds so crazy to say this, but we have the Yankees, the most historic franchise in all of baseball, actually sellers, and everything they did, it seems like it's a winning move. Just got a ton of top prospects.
Yeah, they did. They traded Mr. Carlos Beltran as well.
Yeah, Carlos Beltran. They traded Andrew Miller to Cleveland. And in return, just get a ton of prospects. So they're really setting up for the future and rebuilding towards the future instead of really reloading, which you normally see with the Yankees. Seems like every year, not so much recently, but give it like 10 years, little before that, every top free agent, they were going to New York.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're starting to do it a little differently.
Yeah, I mean, and then they're definitely getting rid of some of those big contracts they didn't want to be on the hook for, too. You know what I mean? They had a few years of bad free agent moves, and so it's good to get rid of those contracts, stuff you don't want to be held to for a while. Like you said, they did trade Cashman, they did trade Aroldis Chapman, they did trade Andrew Miller as well, and they were able to get Clint Frazier's outfielder from the Cleveland Indians for him as well. He's a good young player. So I like what the Yankees did, even though I'm not a fan of the Yankees by any means. I like what they did in terms of getting rid of those heavy contracts. Those aren't what especially for the Yankees. I mean, they've been so predicated on having a franchise for years that were the peak of spend money on good players, and the good players go there because they're going to get the money.
Yeah. So according to reports, obviously it fluctuates because how you rank prospects differs for every person. But according to reports, the Yankees have 6 of the top 100 prospects in baseball. So they're definitely not so much this year. They are a game over 500, so they're still right there. They're not really having a terrible season, but definitely not a season where they're going to be contending for anything. But definitely as the years go on, a couple years, 3 years, they're going to be looking pretty good. Going to be set up really nicely with a lot of young, quality players.
Which saddens me because, like I said, I'm not necessarily a Yankee fan, so I mean, if they do poorly, I'm okay with that.
Well, I mean, they are prospects, so it's obviously something you have to wait on. You have to try and develop them. They're really getting based off of potential, so it always fluctuates. But we'll have to wait and see what happens with the Yankees. So after the trade deadline, Alex, who do you think sort of made the best move, and who's looking the best coming out of the deadline?
I think the Rangers made good moves. I think obviously the Yankees did. The Giants made some good moves to really help them in terms of what they need to be to win another World Series. They got rid of one of their fan favorite players, Matt Duffy, third baseman, but they did get a grouping of players that'll help. 2 pitchers, Will Smith from the Brewers and Matt Moore
of the Rays.
Matt Miller all of a sudden from the Rays, and Matt Miller is who Duffy was given up for. And then they also got a couple days ago Nunez, who is a all-star. He can play shortstop and third base, so it freed up that ability to go
to get rid of Duffy.
And get rid of Duffy, unfortunately, yeah. So I think that they made good moves for what they needed. For teams that didn't necessarily do much, I think the Marlins were definitely a team that didn't get as much as they needed. Unfortunately, Colin Rea, they got from the Padres. He injured his elbow a few innings into his first start with his new club. So that's bad from the get-go, claiming that they were given a player who was damaged goods in a sense. Rea went back to San Diego in exchange for Luis Castillo, who was in the original trade as well. And then Cashner got traded to them, but he hasn't had the greatest of years. He's only a major addition for the team. And the change of scenery might be good, but like I said, he hasn't had an amazing year, which is why I was wondering why so many people wanted him, personally, in my opinion. And I think the Indians just continued a good year. You know what I mean? They didn't acquire Lucroy, but they picked up Andrew Miller from the Yankees, and obviously that was one of the most coveted pieces in the
on the trade
block and the trade rumors and such. Thank you. They gave up significant talent for Miller, but
I think it's a good move.
I mean, it's weird because Miller's not necessarily a rental kind of guy. That's why teams are that's why people are surprised that the Rangers gave up what they gave up for Beltran, because he's kind of just a rental.
Yeah, he's going in to be a free agent. So
yeah,
and he's aging. He's going to be probably just a DH for the Rangers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was surprised that Lucroy vetoed the trade to Cleveland, being such a good team there in the American League. He obviously moved over to the Rangers now, so stays in the American League, coming over from Milwaukee. But I would have thought he would have wanted to go to Cleveland. But Obviously not. The Cleveland Indians could have been a lot better had they have made that trade. But then again, they were able to make the Andrew Miller trade. I think that's a more important trade because if you look at the Indians, what are they built on right now? It's their pitching.
Yeah.
Great starting pitching. Now you add a top reliever. They're really building towards making a playoff run because in the playoffs, it's pitching what wins you games. So I think the Indians made great moves. Mentioned the Rangers. I'd say they're probably the top 2 teams in the AL right now after those trades. I'm back and forth on who I think is better because they do it kind of different ways. We mentioned the Indians with their pitching, and now you have the Rangers with their hitting, adding even more hitting with Lucroy and Beltran.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to have sort of a who's who on who's going to win that, hitting versus pitching. I think some teams that didn't necessarily do too well to really bolster their sides is the Astros. They didn't really make any top moves. And a lot of the AL East teams, other than the Yankees, the contenders, the Orioles, the Red Sox, didn't really do enough, in my opinion, to build towards making a run at things.
A team that I also feel like didn't do much was the Royals. There was rumors for weeks that they were trying to package a deal with Wade Davis and Ian Kennedy for big guys, Chapman at a time, I think I was rumored. Miller was rumored. And then days leading up to the deadline, Wade Davis got hurt. So you lose your biggest chip there. And then they opted to stay put. Other than a straight trade it was Billy Burns for Brett Eibner. I always forget how to say his name. They didn't do anything else. Edison Volquez stayed, even though they could have probably got a few more players for him. They did, for a team that's in 4th place, they didn't do anything to make themselves any better, other than a 1-for-1 trade that who knows how it's going to turn out.
Right. And another big name trade that happened was Jay Bruce of the Reds went to the Mets. That's definitely a good trade.
There was some drama for that right away.
Yeah, it was. They were working out how to get everything situated there, but they obviously got it done in time. Jay Bruce had quite a week last week. He had 6 home runs in 5 games at one point. He really lit up the Giants when they were out here in San Francisco. So a good move for the Mets, trying to add more hitting. I think the Mets are really kind of a dark horse here in the NL if they can get that wild card spot, which I think they will get one of the 2 wild card spots. Everyone seems to forget that they were in the World Series last year. They've had a lot of struggles with injuries. Syndergaard's been injured. Matt Harvey's not really the same pitcher he was a few years back, and now he's injured. Yoenis Cespedes was injured at one point. But if they can sort of get these injuries back, you add Jay Bruce, who's a great power hitter. I think the Mets can maybe make a run at things and kind of be a dark horse. I still think the favorite in the NL is the Cubs, especially with the Aroldis Chapman trade. But we'll have to wait and see.
I like it, man. I like it. So, any more notable ones you have listed? I have one that we're going to talk about on our next podcast, as a matter of fact, in terms of notable trades. But anything that stood out to you other than the Chapmans and the Kashners and the Millers and the real big names, something that just when you saw it you went, that's a great trade?
Not really anything particular. Just as a whole day, it was really exciting to watch things as the deadline approached, as time got even fewer and fewer in between. So I think that's good. I think it's good for baseball. So I mean, it was a great day. We'll have to see how these trades work out for every club. Yeah, I mean, clearly everything looks good so far, and every team's going to say they did what they wanted to do, excluding the Miami Marlins. I'd say they had a pretty rough go of it. Yeah, they didn't do too well yesterday. But poor Marlins. They'll figure baseball out eventually. Yeah, they're still pushing for a wild card spot, so they're still in the thick of things. They got Jose Fernandez, great pitcher, great strikeout pitcher, Giancarlo Stanton, capable of hitting a home run every time he steps to the plate. So yeah, Giancarlo is pretty savage, and then D. Gordon came back too. So you got 3 of your best players back. It's be interesting to see how that turns out for them. Unfortunately, they suffered a setback. But we're going to take our first break here, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about NFL holdouts currently taking part now that camp has started. So we'll be right back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we're back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. We're going to jump into NFL news. Training camp's going on. We have camp holdouts. We have a new member of the Buffalo Bills. We have people holding out, as I mentioned. We have a lot of news in the NFL, Alex.
Yeah, we do, actually. Do you want to start with holdouts or that first new member of the Buffalo Bills?
Let's just do the Bills one real quick. I don't think that's going to be very long. Okay. Reggie Bush, member of the Bills. What do you think of the deal?
It makes sense. Carlos Williams is suspended for, I think, 2 games? 4 games. So it makes sense to have somebody behind LaShawn McCoy, who, as good as he is, has had trouble staying healthy at times.
And their 6th-round pick, I forget his name, from Arkansas, he just got a DWI recently. So you got to imagine he's going to be suspended.
Which round pick?
6th round.
Oh, okay.
From Arkansas.
I don't know.
So, I mean, a 6th-round pick is not really much, but Alfred Morris was a 6th-round pick after all. So
was Antonio Brown and Tom Brady.
I was looking at more running backs, but
I was just letting you know.
Oh, okay.
Arian Foster was undrafted.
He was. Yes, He was.
I mean, it's not like he's amazing anymore. No offense, Arian, but
he's had a good career.
Yeah. It's been marred.
He's had a good career.
It's been marred by injury, homie.
A lot of people's careers are. But anyways, for Bush to the Bills, you said it makes sense. I think that's a good way to put it. I don't think he's really going to add much to the table. He hasn't really been relevant for the last few years.
With the Niners last year before he got hurt, he had sparks.
He hasn't really been relevant for the past few years.
Since the Lions.
The Lions.
He's pretty good Lions.
He's a good pass catcher out of the backfield, as is Shady McCoy. So maybe he can add some.
As was Carlos Williams. They had like 3 of the same running backs.
So I think it's going to be definitely crowded when Williams comes back.
Yeah.
But with Tyrod Taylor being a dual-threat quarterback, maybe they can incorporate some sort of zone read option schemes in there. Bush is a kind of a fast, shifty guy still.
He's still quick, yeah.
So I'll say it makes sense, like you said. Yeah. It's a good way to put it. But
I think it's a good place for him because he's not going to be the guy who won't wear him down. You know, he could have a chance of not getting hurt one year. Because we saw what he was with the Saints. You know, I mean, we saw how good he was with them. He was serviceable with the Dolphins and the Lions. So,
yeah.
And I said at times he sparked pretty fancy footwork with the Niners before he hurt himself in L.A. in St. Louis.
San Francisco?
No, it was against...
Oh, he got hurt in warm-ups that game.
No, it was on a play.
Was it?
Because he ran to the outside and he ran all the way to that cement on the outside.
I remember he hurt his knee in warm-ups in a game.
No, it was he slipped out on the cement by the stands and he hurt his leg. He tore his ACL or something.
Yeah, he did something wrong. But so we'll have to see how Bush does in Buffalo. So yeah. Anyways, Alex, we got some holdouts, some guys reporting to camp that were holding out. What's the rundown?
Well, the everlasting,
probably the shortest camp holdout I can honestly remember.
The everlasting, what you can call DeAndre Hopkins holdout, started and ended in a day. One day to the next. Started on a Monday, ended on a Tuesday. He is looking to get paid. Hopkins is set to earn just under $1.5 million, including his roster bonus. That's pretty small for a receiver who's pretty much the entire offense, I would say.
Last year,
yeah. For the Houston Texans.
Had a great year last year, too.
Yeah, again, and it was a Friday. It was a Saturday to a Sunday that he reported. He did not show up on Saturday, causing many to assume he was holding out, which I guess you could call it that. Maybe he was just sick because he showed up the next day.
Yeah, he's saying it wasn't a message to the Texans. He wasn't trying to send a message about holding out. So I'm sure there was probably some undisclosed reason that we don't know about, because you don't hold out for 1 or 2 days. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah, so. He's quoted as saying, "I play football for a living. That's my job. That's what I love doing. I love coming out here and being with my teammates. I've just got to keep working. I know it'll come. I'm not rushing it. I know it'll happen one day."
And I give him credit for that because we've talked about it on the show. I feel like these guys who hold out I don't understand it because, of course, they're doing great. They want money. They want to raise. But if you get a huge paycheck and you aren't performing, you don't give me that money back as a GM, as an owner. You signed a contract to agree to play for this amount of money. Just live up to it.
Yeah, I always struggle with the contract holdouts. Excuse me.
Yeah, and all you're doing is trying to make it about you and not about the team, because all you're doing is hurting the team.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, anyways, but another holdout is Eric Berry of the Chiefs, Alex.
Yeah, Eric Berry, Chiefs safety, he's holding out. He wants a bigger contract. He stated so before the franchise tag deadline, as a matter of fact, that he wanted a new deal, and it did not arrive.
I can understand how Berry is kind of upset because the Chiefs just re-signed their left tackle who they drafted a few years back, Eric Fisher, out of Central Michigan. They signed him to a 4-year, $60 million contract, and he got about 40 of that guaranteed. I was surprised when I heard that deal because he hasn't really performed like a true number one overall pick would. He hasn't really stood out. He's had some injury concerns, but he hasn't really played up to his potential so far. As far as Eric Berry goes, he literally is doing nothing by holding out because he has to play under the franchise tag. There's literally no negotiations that can happen between the Chiefs and the star safety because he has to be under that franchise tag, and that deadline passed July 15th. So he's either going to not play at all or have to play under the franchise tag, which is about $10 million, I think, $10.8 million, I believe, to be exact. So he's same thing as Cam Chancellor last year for the Seahawks. He's literally going to not play at all or have to play for that because they can't negotiate to sign him to a long-term deal because he's not on a deal. He's on a franchise tag. So I don't know why he's really holding out. Maybe he's just upset with the Eric Fisher thing, which I could understand. If you have money to sign Eric Fisher, why don't you have money to sign Eric Berry to a long-term deal?
Mm-hmm.
But you're accomplishing nothing by holding out. Nothing can literally happen.
Yeah. That's true.
I don't get it.
Now, moving on to probably the most notable contract holdout, which makes no sense to me because there's a precedence here for rookie contracts to an extent of a, what's the word I'm looking for, kind of a clean-cut way of going about it.
You're talking about Joey Bosa?
I'm talking about Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa.
Yeah, I don't get this at all.
What I mean is rookie contracts are kind of...
They're almost edged in stone
I'm looking...
Sort of
I'm looking for...
particular.
There's a word I'm trying to figure out that's... You know, like when you draw and you have the thing to trace, and I can't think of what it's called.
Sketched out?
No, it's. I'll figure. I'm sure I'll think of it later. But yeah, Joey Bosa's been holding out. He's the last first-round pick to not sign, as a matter of fact. And according to Pro Football Talk, Bosa and the Chargers haven't talked since last Thursday. Yeah. Salaries are not slotted for rookies. There's no excuse for missing valuable training camp time. The report says it's clearly that he claims it's offset language.
I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it at all.
Bosa, the number 3 overall pick from Ohio State, his contract is pretty much edged in stone. I don't know what the problem is.
Guaranteed money through rookie life of your rookie deal.
Right. So I don't understand what the issue is here.
Well, that's what he wants. He wants guaranteed money. He wants, if it's offset language, what it sounds like is typically guaranteed money is the same through most first-round picks, especially the top 10. But you can set it to, like with Von Miller's deal. He gets most of his guaranteed money through the first 2 years of that deal, right?
Right.
It's the same concept. It seems like he wants the guaranteed money sooner rather than later. Don't understand that.
That kind of...
I mean, I understand
would
that,
kind of worry me. Because if it's guaranteed no matter what, if you know you're going to get it in either 1 year or 3 years, what's the big rush?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to hold out already and you haven't even played a single snap in the NFL, what does that tell me about your character? It doesn't bode well for Bosa.
Not in my opinion.
Imagine if he's a standout defensive end in his first contract. Imagine what his next holdout is going to be, possibly. He's going to hold out... If he's already holding out as a rookie, what could he do as like a 5-year veteran? It's not going to be well. You know what I mean?
It's not going to go well.
You get what I'm saying? I don't get this at all. I don't know what he's waiting for.
I don't either. I've never liked first-round pick holdouts. I mean, like you said, I don't think of it as like, why? I mean, you haven't played in the league. No offense, you haven't earned anything.
You haven't earned a single dime.
Yeah, and like I said, after the Niners signed, they reached an agreement with the number 28th overall pick, their second first-round pick, Josh Garnett. He is the last of the first-round picks to not be signed.
I don't get it.
And
you would think you'd be excited and eager to sign your first NFL contract.
Mm-hmm. Who's playing in the Hall of Fame game again on Sunday? It's the
Packers and the Colts.
Colts. Okay, I was like, is it the Chargers? Not the
Yeah,
Chargers.
Hall of Fame game on Sunday. Going to be the first preseason game of the NFL season. It's going to be. We're going to have at least football on every weekend now until February.
Mm-hmm.
So
no, I was thinking because I thought C all of a sudden. I was like, wait, do they play in the Hall of Fame game? Because I say he's holding out. He's got games already. I mean, he's going to in about 2 weeks roughly. If you include this, since it's only Tuesday, is a full week. There's a Hall of Fame game this week, and then the following week is preseason games.
That's when they start. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got roughly 2 weeks, and they're in games, and he's still holding out. I don't understand that when this stuff happens.
And 2 weeks is really a lot of time. We talked about Von Miller. We saw no way he could reach a deal possible, and then in one day, him and the Broncos just sign a deal. But it is a long time. But I just don't understand it. Like you'd think you'd want to. Has never played in the NFL, you'd think you'd want to be there to experience a training camp experience, to experience your first NFL contract, mini camps, preseason games, everything. You'd think you'd want to be there, but yet you're having an issue with your contract and you haven't even played yet. I don't get it.
Mm-hmm. And Bosa missed 1 day of the organized training activities in San Diego. He did the whole mandatory minicamp for the most part, but due to issues with the contract earlier this year. And then again, he just hasn't reported training camp at all. And as a rookie, you are far behind.
You have to
remember
learn.
Crabtree?
Michael Crabtree?
Yeah, he held out like all preseason
for the Niners.
Yeah,
when he was drafted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to catch up to NFL speed, NFL system, schemes, all that stuff, and you're already behind. You're behind everybody.
Mm-hmm. I hate it.
It's silly. It makes no sense at all.
I don't like it at all. Don't like it at all. And there's not really any other notable holdouts, honestly. I mean, there's guys that want money, but there's not really any super notable holdouts.
Which I think is good.
It's nice.
Definitely a good thing.
Yeah, it's nice. I like it, personally.
Because every year you have that one or two big name guys who just have to hold out for everything.
Mm-hmm. And
then they always seem to sort of settle and come back. Just like Cam Chancellor did last year. I would expect to see the same thing from Eric Berry. I don't know if there's maybe a conspiracy. These guys don't want to go to training camp, so then they hold out. I know that was a conspiracy with Brett Favre a long time ago, but he was a lot older than a lot of these guys. So
there was no conspiracy for Strahan. Strahan said he used to miss the back end of all the mandatory training camps because he just wanted to hang out with his family, and it ended up being like $400,000 a year. He said, "I'll gladly pay that."
Because training camp could be a very scary thing. It's another chance for you to get injured, have your whole season wasted.
Yeah,
so I understand.
Little things like that. Like currently, I'm looking at Julius Thomas sprained his left ankle during practice. He'll be evaluated further. He is able to walk off the field under his own power, so it sounds like he tweaked it.
And that's something that lingers on.
Yeah, little stuff like that. So, it's little stuff. Yeah,
those little nagging injuries that always seem to bother you into the season, sort of stunt your growth going into the season. Yeah. You're not having the fitness levels up.
And don't get me started on all these reporters, too, that make it sound so much worse when these play. Like, Odell Beckham Jr. was in a collision yesterday at practice, and he had some cuts and scrapes, and he's just sitting out practice today because they get a rest. To like, uh-oh, the OBJ's hurt.
Well, you got to get the story. You got to do something to get people to click on your link or your page.
Just shut up, people.
So that's the media for you.
That's the media for you, and that's us now.
That is us.
Well, what are you going to do? All right, well, we'll take our last break, and then we're going to move into PGA stuff. So we'll take our last break here. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
And we are back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Going to be jumping into some golf news. Alex, over the weekend we had the PGA Championship. Jimmy Walker of the United States comes out on top, one stroke ahead over world's number one, the Australian Jason Day. So Jimmy Walker wins it at 14 under, Jason Day under 13. The golf championship in New Jersey here, we had a purse earnings for Jimmy Walker winning $1.8 million, Alex.